Hey guys! So I started interviewing again applicants after a long time for an operations team that I'm handling in a call center setup. It actually reminded me about all the things that I hate about an applicant, and I wanted to make this video and hopefully share with you some tips and tricks on how to win your interview, your first step into the BPO world. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do my makeup and just try to talk this through as if I'm chatting with one of my friends or one of my colleagues, all right? So the first trick that I would like to share with you is to practice the common questions that you usually hear in a BPO setup. And what are these common questions? If this is your first time and you haven't really been to an interview in the past, the common questions are: tell me something about yourself. Oh, that's not really a question, but that's one of the most common theme in an interview. Tell me something about yourself. You better start practicing talking about whatever is not in your resume. Talk about yourself as an individual. Are you an outgoing person? Are you talkative? Do you like food? Do you want to travel? What are the things that interests you? And what are the things that you want people to know about you? And of course, you have to bear in mind that you may wanted to keep the bad, okay? Obviously, it's an interview and you wanted to impress the person you're talking to. The most common pitfall is just talking about what's in your resume. A good interviewer does their homework and goes through your resume ahead of your interview schedule. So there is no need to actually go through your resume and talk about your previous job at this point. And it doesn't make sense that you're telling me things that I can already read. You know, if you're gonna tell me things that already in your resume, then what's the point of this interview? If that makes sense. Another common question might be, what are your expected salary? And why are you choosing this company? And why do we need to choose you? These are the questions that are a little bit more sensitive. For example, why did you leave your previous company? It could be because you were terminated, or it could be because you had a misunderstanding with your supervisor. So this is something that you need to practice ahead of time. And this is something that you need to articulate and to put forward your good qualities, if not your best qualities. What exactly happened when you left the company, and why do you think it was the best move at the time? The reason why I think it's important to practice this question is because a lot of times we would hear generic answers like, oh, I'm looking for growth. I'm not growing anymore within the company. I'm not seeing myself anywhere aside from taking in calls. If you think about it, what makes you so sure that you will grow in this company? You need to be very honest with your answers, why you left the company. Because if you are giving generic BS like seeking for growth, it's not gonna fly these days. It's actually giving an impression that you did not take your time to learn the business, that you are impatient, you don't have a sense of stewardship. As you actually grow with the business and stick through the difficult time, then it actually gives you a lot of opportunity to grow within the company in itself, and you don't have to hop from one center to another. Especially in the BPO industry, it is very easy to find a job these days. I can quit my job today and find another one tomorrow if you're talking about technical support or customer service role. So spare with your generic answers and just stick to an honest answer while making sure that you are putting your best foot forward when you're answering this. Do not talk shit about the company that you worked with. Do not talk badly about your supervisor or your manager. If there was a problem with your previous company or your previous manager, cite only the problem. Do not attack the people that you work with. It actually puts a bad taste and tells more about you rather than the company that you left. That is why it's very important to practice this question, because it's very tricky. It could say so much about you, and it could be detrimental to the success of your interview at the end of the day. And that leads me to my second point, which is not only to be honest, but understand the question. I come across so many applicants who just, I don't know if they're not listening or they're not understanding the question. But when you're in an interview, it's very important that you listen and you understand what the question is. A good example of that is when I'm doing my interview, I really like to focus on the behavior of the person rather than on the person's skills. Yes, skills is important. It actually can make or break an interview, but I do filter skills by looking at your resume, and from there, I decide if you have the right amount of skills to join my team. And the interview is really just to gauge your behavior and your attitude as an employee, as a colleague, and as a steward of the company, which is very important. So I like throwing a hypothetical situation whereas, say, I'm your manager, I give you an Excel file. It contains the monthly report of our sales for the month, and I give you specific instructions on how to finish the report. As you were doing the report for me, you noticed that some of my computations are incorrect. How would you handle that situation? The first step is not to overthink the question. I think a lot of applicants are thinking, okay, maybe this manager is asking me if I can be a yes person or if he can rely on me just following instructions. Do not think of what this person may be thinking and what this person may be expecting you to answer. Instead, focus on your thought process and how you will actually handle the situation in real life. With this question, the common answer is, I'll go back to my manager, I'll tell him or her that, hey, I find that this formula looks off. This is, I think, how it should be calculated. And that's a generally acceptable answer. You have the initiative to go back to your manager and try to correct a situation. That's really, really awesome. But I like throwing in a follow-up question. What if your manager tells you that I know that my computations are incorrect? Just go ahead with it because we need to pass this month's KPI. And that is when you really have to understand the situation. Your manager is asking you to manipulate your data so that you can pass your monthly scores. Which leads me to my third point and third tip for this video, which is to stick with your principle and stick with your values. Having to go back to your manager and try to correct a computation, it might be convenient to just move on, if that makes sense. In real life, people just don't call out bad behavior of their leaders just because they're leaders. If you are a manager or a supervisor who cares about your business and who cares about growing, manipulation of data is not something that you would do. And number two, you would not want to hire someone who says yes to everything that you ask. Nobody wants a yes man down here because it actually prevents progress as an individual, as a leader. We're looking for people who has a strong sense of integrity, can say no to your managers when it's needed, and can actually say, I cannot do it. That is not consistent with my principle. My next tip is to research about the company and the role that you're applying for. I get so annoyed to those who doesn't even take time to research about the company and to research about the role that they're going to fulfill. I know it could be that you were sending multiple resumes at once and you probably did not have time to go through the roles and responsibilities and understand each and every single item, but I think it's very important that when you get that invitation for an interview, especially on a final interview, is to have a good understanding of what is expected from me? What do I know about this company? Because it will not only be beneficial for your interview, it will also be beneficial for you in a long run. For me personally, before going into an interview or even before sending my resume, I really like to go over their Facebook page or to Google employee feedbacks for the company just to gauge, is it a good place to work with? Number one, obviously, we wanted to join a company that has a good working environment that actually promotes further development and is an equal opportunity employer in general. Secondly, it doesn't make sense that you don't understand the roles and responsibility and you're applying for the job. And if I could also go back a little bit to honesty, I mentioned earlier that it's very important to be honest during your interview while putting your best foot forward. But I think it is also relevant to be honest in your resume as well. So I came across this guy who listed knowledgeable in Visio under his resume, under his skills. So I asked him, I'm interested to know how you were using Visio in your line of work. If you know Visio, you know exactly what it's for. So I was thinking maybe he was helping the company or his team come up with a process flow, a process documentation. So I asked, I would be interested to know because I would like to hire people with added skills and added knowledge like how to use a Visio. This guy said, we use Visio for managing the account. So I was like, how do you use Visio exactly to manage an account? Obviously, he stammered and he was not making sense at all. And at the end of the interview, I told him that I'm a little bit disappointed. At the end of the day, I asked him, did you just copy and paste your resume from another person? And he said, yes, he just copied and pasted it from Google, which did not help his case. So he was honest at the end of the day. However, I felt like I couldn't trust this person anymore. If you could lie about, knowing how to use Visio, what else are you lying about? So obviously that didn't work well for him. So just make sure that whatever you're putting in your resume, it's honest, it looks clean, and that you can articulate whatever you put in there. My last tip for this video is to just be calm and be polite at all times. Put your best energy forward. I say that because I also came across applicants who are just too excited. They practice, they research about the company, they research about their role, they're ready to smash the interview. But they come across as rude and impatient just because they can't help themselves and kept on talking over the interviewer because they feel like they already understand the question even before the interviewer is able to finish their question. That is something you have to really be aware of and catch yourself from doing. Just pause, be calm, relax, let the interviewer finish their question or whatever they're saying, because it will do you good in the end. And obviously, if you're applying for a customer service position, talking over your interviewer is like a sneak peek of how rude you're gonna get when you talk to one of those difficult customers in the future. And when I say, put your best energy forward, make sure that you have a good amount of sleep before the interview and probably drink coffee. I usually like drinking an espresso before an interview because it just hypes me up. It makes me sound really friendly and really perky. That's something that you wanted to think ahead of time. What is the persona that I would like to bring in? And what is the level of energy that I wanted to bring in during the interview? Because that may make or break your success for the interview, especially if you're trying to apply for a sales role or for a customer service role. I would prefer someone who actually shows a lot of energy during the interview. The last tip I have for you in this video is to don't be afraid to ask questions at the end of the interview. Like when your interview doesn't tell you if you passed the interview, you can ask. You can ask. Did I pass the interview? Or when will I know if I made it to the cut? If they do tell you that you got the job, you can ask questions like, how do you think will I become successful in this role? Or when will the training start? Even bigger companies doesn't have a good onboarding process. It may be relevant to ask these questions sooner while you still have their attention rather than try to chase a talent acquisition specialist or an HR personnel at a later time and you can't get a hold of them in the phone. Higit sa lahat, huwag mo din kalimutan mag-pray before the interview. Pray that you will have the wisdom to understand the question and to articulate your best thoughts. Pray that you remain calm. Pray for His guidance in general. At the end of the day, remember that no matter how you plan your life, it is still up to His plans, still up to Him whether or not you're gonna make that interview or if that is where He would like to take you on your next journey. So do your part, prepare as much as you can, but trust that His plan is always bigger than yours. And that is it, you guys. This is the makeup that I would wear to an interview. Not exactly glam, but something, that would make me look put together. Masabi naman na naghanda tayo kahit konti. I hope this helped you. And trust the process, but do your part. Research, practice, fake it till you make it. And I'm sure you'll get the job of your dreams in no time. If you want more of these videos and other tips or tricks in getting into the BPO industry and other topics that you would like me to discuss on how to progress your call center life, let me know other topics that you want me to discuss down below and I'll be more than happy to help. Diba? Customer service to customer service. See ya!